Are you ready to jump into the unknown and explore a world beyond your imagination, filled with excitement, fun, and is beyond limits? But the question is, are you ready to jump? If it is a yes, then you have jumped into the world of ultimate entertainment.
Welcome to YOLO 247, a place of fun, indulgence, and endless surprise.
From the Mumbai studios of Republic TV, it's time for Arnab Goswami on The Debate.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and now time for the nation's sharpest opinion. Has Putin become weak? Is Putin really in control? Where is Putin? The reality is that the Russians may deny it. They may be told to put up a brave face to what's going on, but the whole world has seen the reality. And whatever spin you can give it in this remarkable and unexpected twist to the Ukraine-Russia war, in the last 48 hours, we've seen an attempted mutiny in Russia. Reality is that Moscow was laid siege by a private mercenary group, Wagner. And the plan was aborted only when Belarus had to step in. So Putin, who always likes to be seen to be the person holding the cards, has been taken completely by surprise. And even Putin's greatest supporters will admit that this is looking bad on Russia. It's looking as if Russia has been taken by surprise. Is a country that is at war with itself in any position to set terms to the rest of the world? And what is the point of trying to downplay it when the reality is that a private group of mercenaries hired by the Russians themselves to fight for Russia on Russia's behalf in Ukraine marches all the way to Russia, to Rostov-on-Don, surrounds the military headquarters there, and none of this the Russians can deny, and captures the town for 24 hours until a foreign country has to broker a temporary peace. Viewers, in this entire battle, it's been a game of wits. And Vladimir Putin is going to hate it. A man whose background was as head of the spy agency, who's been head of the FSB, to be completely outsmarted and to almost have to disappear from public view for a while, has his hold on power, or the perception of Putin as being all-powerful in Russia being threatened. And how long in these circumstances will he truly be able to hold on? That is one side of the story. On the other side, I don't know what America is celebrating either. Because the West may be celebrating that the Wagner group has presented Russia with another vicissitude of internecine strife. But the reality is that the Americans should not get ahead of themselves. The Americans should know that there are different ways in which Putin functions. Putin could do a strategic retreat for a while and then hit back. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if there is a conflict within Russia, if there is a civil war within Russia, if there is war within Russia, it could affect the world order, the economy, and America itself. For all I know, Russian civil strife will only open doors for Chinese intervention. So I think neither side has anything to celebrate here. But for now, here's the ground situation, and then we'll debate.
It's been over 48 hours since the mercenaries of the private Russian military force Wagner halted their march to Moscow and retreated.
Мы находимся в штабе. 7 часов 30 минут утра.
Prigozhin's private army, which appeared to control the military headquarters in Rostov-on-Don, retreated after intervention by Belarus.
It's a special update for Republic Media Network from the center of Rostov, where the Wagner forces are in the process of evacuating or leaving the city and headed back to the war zone. Now, we're right here in the dead center, and as you saw a tank there, you can see another tank here loaded up and ready to go.
The West believes Putin's role is brittle.
The conclusion, the most important conclusion, is that the war against Ukraine launched by Putin and the monster that Putin created with the Wagner, the monster is biting him now. The monster is acting against his creator.
An unprecedented mutiny declared by Putin's close aide. But despite that, Russian Defense Ministry says that they will not prosecute the mercenary boss. What does this mean? Is there much more than what meets the eye?
Many say the aftershocks will be felt for far longer.
Putin is definitely much diminished. The Russian military, and this is of significance as far as Ukraine is concerned, is clearly in some disarray. And Prigozhin, well, apparently he's left the stage to go to Belarus, but is that the end of Prigozhin and the Wagner group? The fact that he's gone to Belarus is, I think, a matter of some concern. Now, what we don't know, but we'll discover in the next hours and days, as to whether how many of his fighters have actually gone with him.
There has been no public appearance from Putin after this declaration to capture the Wagner chief was withdrawn.
И верховный главнокомандующий, как гражданин России, сделаю все, чтобы отстоять страну, защитить конституционный строй, жизни и безопасности, свободу граждан. Тот, кто организовал и готовил военный мятеж, кто поднял оружие на боевых товарищей, предали Россию и ответят за это. А тех, кого пытаются втянуть в это преступление, призываю не совершать роковую и трагическую, неповторимую ошибку. Сделать единственно правильный выбор – прекратить участие в преступных действиях.
Has the war within left Putin weaker than ever? Let's debate.
I'm introducing everyone first. Tatiana Kukareva, who's Deputy Chief of Sputnik. Greg Simons is joining us from Northern Macedonia. Ingrid Kim is a Russian journalist. She's joining us from Tanzania. Dr. Sergei Tovarinov is President of the IDC Russia and is joining us from Dubai. We have Rich Outson, former Senior Advisor at the State Department, and he's at the Jamestown Foundation from Virginia. Stephen Golub is an international affairs expert from California. Nicole Brenner-Schmitz is a political strategist from Washington, and Charles Kupchan is professor of international affairs at Georgetown University. Thank you very much, everyone. Opening this up, and we'll have a free debate. Please feel free to interrupt each other. Just raise your hand and I'll bring you into the debate. I'm starting with Tatiana. Tatiana, for all the big talk, Russia is looking weak, divided, on the back foot, unable to handle their own private army. Without this private army, you would be nowhere in the Ukraine war with Ukraine. Now the private army is not with you. I think it would be good, not for you, for example, and for others in Russia, not to try and downplay what has happened and to put a brave face to it, but to realize that what happened is serious with implications for Russia. Tatiana.
Well, good evening to you, Arnab. I listened to your introduction word. I'm quite confused as to, you basically told everybody that whatever I say, that, the country is weak. So don't see a point in even in talking about it. Whatever I say, you already explained to people that I've been told, apparently, I hope by the president. Jesus, I wish he called me and told me what to say in this situation, but damn it. So the one thing that I would talk about is that how and why are you saying that the country is divided?
I mean, you're at war with Prigozhin. He's really put Putin down to his knees over the weekend. We all saw that. Your mercenary army, as in not you, let's not get into the subjective issue of divisions. Let's get into the straight fact that he militarily put you on the back foot for 24 hours. Russia did not know what to do. Putin had to make a video appearance, and there was an attempted coup. Then Belarus had to intervene. Putin had to, in panic, Putin had to call Turkey, Central Asian countries for help to try and stabilize his position. Don't tell me this did not happen. If it happened or did not happen, it's a reality. You can't deny it. Tatiana.
I can deny it, and I will. And I will deny it. First of all, why are you calling this a coup?
You also deny the fact that all this happened. You deny the fact that Wagner made a move.
Of course not. There are videos of them driving that march of, they call it march of, what's the name that he's using? Justice? I'm not denying this, but why are you calling this a coup? Not in any way, shape or form, not once did Yevgeny Prigozhin say that he's marching against Putin. He never tried to, he actually said that specifically, that his people have been dying for the president, that he's not contesting the power in the country, that his feud is entirely with the Ministry of Defense.
So it's great, it's very interesting situation. Okay, so Tatiana, interesting situation. I'll get Rich Outson on that. I find it fascinating that the head of a mercenary group sets terms on who should be your defense minister. If that is not Putin looking weak, I don't know what is, but Rich would like to respond. Colonel Rich.
Right. Well, I've got some sympathy for Tatiana on this one. It's a very confusing and difficult situation. Tatiana's not all wrong. I think that Prigozhin was trying to thread a very difficult needle here by saying, I'm not against Putin or against the government, I'm just against some of the people serving in it. The problem for Putin, of course, is that anytime a national leader loses what we call the monopoly on the use of force, when he no longer has unity of command over all elements, he does look weak. So this tool that Putin has relied upon in Mali, Central African Republic, Syria, and elsewhere has really sort of blown up in his face here. I don't think it's a threat to his rule over Russia, and on the battlefield in Ukraine, it doesn't seem to have had much immediate impact, but it certainly weakens the image of Putin as sort of a dominant force that has control over all the important elements in Russia.
Absolutely, it does. I don't think any Russian analyst can deny that today. And in terms of power, in terms of outreach...
You only have one Russian analyst, so who else would deny that?
No, we have three others who are pro-Russia. Can I get them in?
No,
and Tatiana, let me say that I totally and completely admire your unswerving loyalty to Putin, but at some point of time, a dash of neutrality would be great. I mean, you used to come on my program and say, we got the Wagner group. We've got the Wagner group. You know how powerful the Wagner group is. You used to boast about the Wagner group earlier. Now you want to deny you ever knew them. I mean, Tatiana, Middle East, Crimea, Donbass, capturing of towns. Everywhere it is the Wagner group. It is not the Russian military. It's your mercenary force. You are trying to wash your hands of them. You don't know which way to look.
One question, Arnab. Where and when did you hear the news that the Wagner group is being dissolved? Did it disappear? Was that the news?
Well, it's really sad, your situation today. Let me ask you a question, Tatiana. I don't know.
Go ahead.
I don't know your understanding of the complexity of the situation. But the fact is, how can you fight a war as a country where you can neither act against the Wagner group, nor can you break them, and nor can you trust them? I don't know. You are the ones, you created the situation. Greg, I'm getting confused. Where is this headed? Tatiana says, you know, everything's fine. We're all having a little picnic. The Wagner group is just, you know, walking around a little bit. They don't need to do anything else. Peace is made. Do you buy that, Greg?
Well, what I think is there are too many assumptions. And as I was told in my training, assumptions are the mother of all F-ups. So if we take things at face value, then they will appear, as you say. But why would Wagner make a serious attempt when they rely on the Russian Ministry of Defense for ammunition, the Russian government for contracts, and why in the heck would they go to Belarus? Because, I mean, in 2020, Lukashenko accused them of trying to foment a coup against the Belarusian government. So that would surely be from the frying pan to the fire. So I think we've got a lot of things which are playing public, but there are things which are going under the surface, which are being overlooked at the moment. If I was Putin, for example, why would you hold back military force against Wagner and not take out Prigozhin? You have all of these unanswered questions. And I mean, we're talking about, you're talking about this division. I mean, if anything, people are behind the Russian government because what they have, the average person
Greg,
on the street thinks.
Greg.
Yes.
Greg, I think that there is a very strong attempt by you at rationalizing and giving this feeling that why would this be, why would that be, this is not explained, that is not explained. The simple point is, and let me get Charles Kopchin on this, that you have had a mercenary group which has gone right outside the border of Moscow, threatened your government, your fighter jets.
It's not
okay, so let me ask you this. No, a private army
is not on the gates.
Okay, so why did a private army surround a military complex?
A private army runs completely different logic.
So they can run over the country.
A standing army.
Someone who is on your payrolls can run you over. Does that make sense, Charles? I think the Russians are trying too hard to explain this to themselves. Why didn't the Russian troops stop them? Why is the Russian public sympathizing with Wagner? Where are the videos? Tatiana says there are videos. Obviously, she's sitting in some very elite part of Moscow. The reality is that there are videos of Russian citizens yelling at the police convoy and calling them traitors for prolonging the war.
Can you show them?
We have already shown them. We've already shown them many times. And tell me one thing. Tell me one thing. Tell me.
Can you show them?
Why don't you tell me one thing? Please, do you recollect Russian history, Tatiana, or will you force me to teach you Russian history?
No, I was already of age when the history that you're talking about happened.
No, when Vladimir Putin in 1991 described the dissolution of the USSR as the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the century, right? There was an attempted coup by Gorbachev's political rivals, and though the coup was not successful, it demonstrated the weakness of the USSR to the world. Don't tell me you don't know that aspect of your own country's history.
Oh, thank you very much. I was in Moscow when the tanks.
I just
drove
wanted to
down
remind
the
you,
center.
Tatiana. Thank you very much. I have no problems reminding you of many other episodes as well.
And your point is, you're
My point is
comparing
we saw something this
that
weekend.
Look, you're comparing something that was an actual coup d'etat with a stunt
Well,
that never intended to overthrow the power in the country.
Well, I find
Were people taking selfies with Wagner fighters? Yes. But let me tell you one thing, Arnab. When I come to India, people take selfies with me. Does that mean that I'm trying to overthrow the Prime Minister?
You're oversimplifying things. I don't think you're understanding the seriousness, or you're trying to trivialize it, which is bad. Charles, how do you view this, and also the kind of responses we've seen from Tatiana?
Can I jump in here?
Yes, please, Charles.
You know, we've seen this movie before. I think what unfolded over the weekend is reminiscent of other mercenary armies that have bitten the hand that feeds them, whether it's the Janissaries in the Ottoman Empire, the Praetorian Guard in the Roman Empire. This happens a lot, and I think it teaches probably a lesson to Putin and others that they should beware the kinds of parastatal or paramilitary organizations they create. And there's no question that this does demonstrate a weakness in the Putin regime that we haven't seen since he took power more than 2 decades ago. That having been said, I'm not that far away from where Tatiana is, and I know that's surprising coming from Washington, because I didn't see signs, and maybe they're out there, maybe we'll get more information, but I didn't see signs that the state was ready to side with Wagner and peel away from the Kremlin. We hear some reports of Wagner shooting down some Russian aircraft. We hear about some damage on the highway, I assume sustained when Russian troops were firing at Wagner. But when you look at the bigger picture, the military apparatus, the intelligence services, the security service, the mayors, the governors, I don't see signs that the wheels have begun to come off the Russian regime. I also think that these reports that Prigozhin is going to go unpunished are probably incorrect. You know, Putin tends to poison his opponents, not to pardon them. And so I think that the end result of this may not necessarily be a weak Russia that doesn't know what direction to head, but a Putin who cracks down at home, and a Putin who amps up the war in Ukraine as a response to being threatened. Let's wait and see.
Sure, he could do that. And I think that one should not underestimate Putin. And he's a former KGB agent who at the time of the USSR's dissolution single-handedly, without any weapons and orders from Moscow, saved the KGB office in Dresden. I know what he's done, and he's capable of hitting back. But the reality is this, that this has shown the soft underbelly of the Russians. I'd like to bring in Dr. Sergey, please, on this. Dr. Sergey and Ingrid, as well as Stephen. Is Putin looking weak? And what could be the next consequence of this? What do you think, Stephen? Golub, what do you think? What would Putin's response to a situation like this be?
Well, to your first question, is he looking weak? Yes, certainly. He had, whether we want to characterize this as a mutiny or a stunt or a coup or a whatever, he had a significant number of troops no longer under his control, advancing as far as advancing closer to Moscow than Agra is to New Delhi. And that should be very, very worrisome on a number of levels for Putin himself in terms of no longer having either the reality or the appearance of absolute control over the use of force in his country. It should be of concern to all of us as well, because this is a major nuclear power. I believe they have the largest nuclear arsenal in the world. To have a potential civil war, to have the country, whether it's on the brink or approaching the brink, to that kind of situation is extremely concerning. And to get back to put matters in a broader perspective here regarding Putin. Putin is paying a price for his own authoritarianism, corruption, and repression. If the Russian state, including the military, were not so corrupt, they may well have been able to conquer Ukraine fairly easily. But they'd hollowed themselves out by equipment, by training, by all sorts of resources that were supposed to go to their own military, the Russian military, being in effect stolen by civilian and military leaders. In terms of repression, Putin has isolated himself so much that he's no longer getting good information, it seems, from within his own security apparatus, military and civilian advisors, that he doesn't know completely what's going on. That's why he went into Ukraine to begin with. He thought it was going to be a very, very easy task, just a short-term military blitzkrieg, if you will. It obviously hasn't turned out anything like that. And in terms of being on top of the situation in his own country,
why didn't,
you have to believe that he was taken by surprise.
Yeah, Ingrid.
Yeah, just because I'm going off from my charge in my phone, sorry, I'm in Tanzania, I want to remind Mr. Arnab about your Prime Minister, Mahatma Gandhi, who was killed by Muslims. So our Prime Minister never be touched in our history.
First of all, Mahatma Gandhi was not our Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Second, he was not killed by Muslims. Ingrid, I don't know what you are talking about.
I'm talking about your Kashmir, whereas everyone know it's like Indian army fighting the Pakistan army. So when you remind us about weakening of our country, your sustainable conflict in your country, India, and that's why you say now the Putin is so weak. Actually, Putin overcome complicated situation to prevent civil war. He stopped Prigozhin, who was behind his back, and he prevented. And he exiled to Belarus. So my opinion, when you check about Putin, what he trained.
Ingrid, can I ask you a question? Since you're very provoked with the situation here right now, and I think the Russians are getting very provoked with some straightforward questions out here. I mean, I think the Russians need to understand, Dr. Sergi, that this situation. Yes, Dr. Sergi, I just want to say this, that this situation is not a creation of the rest of the world. This situation is a creation of the Russian power struggle within. So there's no point trying to find a foreign hand behind this. Yes, please, Dr. Sergi.
Yes, thank you so much. Dear Arnab, first of all, I want to say that our national leader, Vladimir Putin, is highly determined to take care of his nation. And he's serving our nation from all these years, and not when someone is quite as weak. And famous poet of Russia, Fyodor Tyutchev, thought, if you want to understand Russia by mind, you will never understand. But if you try your best to understand Russia by your belief, you'll realize what is Russia. I am completely believer, and I believe that our country have a mission, historical, spiritual mission. And who appoint Putin, first of all? Do you think that Yeltsin, our first president, was appointed Putin? No, completely wrong answer. Putin was appointed on his position by God. God himself appointed him because he is a believer also. First of all, he is Christian believer. He tried to support our spiritual civilization, our tradition. We cannot see any gender revolution in our country. We cannot see any changes. What changed in Europe? Europe completely destroyed, their tradition destroyed. And our national leader come to the Wagner. Wagner not against Putin, and Putin not against Wagner. They have their own vision. I already mentioned today on the one show that Wagner is not educated personality, but he has good attention inside his heart. He was not a military general or soldier. He just, because of the challenger of history, he become such a kind of personality, sincere, who wants to support his country, support tradition, support our historical mission. Because we fight not with Ukraine. We
Dr.
fight
Sergi.
with evil today.
Dr.
That is the
Sergi.
mission of Russia.
Dr. Sergi, can I get a response from the other side to this, please? And I can understand that there's a lot of emotion when you're speaking today. And I do understand where you're coming from. You're feeling hurt. And Tatiana has also heard that this is the situation that a country is seen to be losing an upper hand in the battle of perception. But this is how I look at it.
Yes, see, sometimes
a person who at one point of time got catering contracts from Putin is today not only able to refuse to sign a contract with the Russian military which Putin approved, but he is able to threaten the defense leadership of Russia with such impunity. And Putin was forced to pardon Prigozhin, allow him to go to Belarus, and have Lukashenko intervene on his behalf. The simple point, if there is a question of assertion, I'm sure there are ways in which, without inflicting collateral damage, Putin could have surrounded Prigozhin, made him prisoner, dragged him back, and made an example of it.
Arnab.
But that is not, one minute, Tatiana, let me just get in another view. I'm coming back to you. Let me get in Nicole. That's not what happened. We were observing very keenly. No. We were observing. We were observing very keenly.
Did you read the news today? The prosecutor general did not dismiss the case against Prigozhin. This is the official statement made this morning. So let's not talk about pardon, shall we?
You are not complete in your information. What is the status of all the people who back Prigozhin? Are they getting an amnesty? And if they are getting an amnesty, then why are they getting an amnesty? Have they been allowed to move to Belarus as part of a deal? I'd say this. If someone works against your country's interests, would you tolerate it? You say the man is a traitor.
Of course not.
This is a terrorist mission. But if a man is a traitor and is leading a terrorist mission, then what is the action against him? Let me get in Nicole on who has a take on the other side. Nicole, what do you think? Is this a temporary truce?
Well, I mean, there's a lot we still don't know. We don't know how many soldiers are with him. We don't have that final count. We've not really heard from Putin for a while now, as he's apparently also assessing, I think, the situation himself. I think the important thing from the administration's point of view is that, the Biden administration made a statement this morning and are leaning into it very hard that they have nothing to do with this. The U.S. wants to make it very clear that they were not.
Why does the U.S. have to clarify that?
And that they are. The Biden administration has gone out of their way this morning because what I think they're looking at and they're very focused on right now is what happens going forward. And the reality is that certainly in the U.S. media and lots of places across the world, Putin is being portrayed as very weak, and they know that that is not something that he is going to react well to, and they're afraid of what he does in reaction to that.
Is that narrative being put out, Nikita? Is that narrative being put out in Moscow that there is an American or Western hand behind this?
No, of course not. We have some problems inside our country, but they were solved in one day. Now, if you will read the Western newspapers or American analytical centers, they write that power of Putin and Kremlin became stronger because he extremely fast, extremely easy solves the problem of
How did he solve the problem? There were 6 Russian helicopters and an aircraft which were shot down by the Wagner group.
Mr. Arnab, please do not interrupt me. It's a bad idea. There is no official information about...
Which official? You don't expect RT to broadcast that news.
Mr. Arnab, you are again interrupting me. Please, if you want to be a Russian expert, go to Moscow, and you will take my place. As I said, there is no official information about 10 helicopters, 6 or 7. There is no such information anywhere. It is unavailable sources from the Telegram, that's all. We can hardly say, was anybody killed or injured during this event? If you want to get this information, you should wait the results of official investigation, which is still active. But we're here to discuss that Putin win. His power became stronger. Even American analytical centers close to Biden confirm it. Putin win. Russia win. So, did anything change for Ukraine? No, they're still losing the war. Has anything changed for United States? No, they're still dreaming about crisis in Russia. But it is a dream. You should divide your dreams and reality. Russia.
That's all hard talk, but you know, Colonel Rich, that's all hard talk, and I appreciate Russian hard talk. Of course, I don't expect you to do anything else in a situation such as this. But I would say this to you, Nikita, allow me please, and I understand your line, nobody understands Russia, only Russians do. You have to be in Moscow, you have to be sitting here having a beer with me to understand Russia, etc., etc. It's great, but that's not the, let's have a serious approach on this. The fact is this, Rich, that Prigozhin is bragging about his advance, and he's saying, see, I showed you the security problem in the country. As far as Prigozhin is concerned, he has set terms, and it is the Russians, it is Putin's establishment which is saying, no. This man may be very powerful, he doesn't have a problem with Putin, we are very friendly with him, he's a very nice guy, actually we all get along a lot. His problem is with the defense minister, we will make him collateral damage, we'll dump him. But then who emerges as the powerful person in all of this? Nikita, please, don't deny everything. Don't deny everything. Come into a debate with Rich. Let's have an open debate. Rich.
Yeah,
Rich is on the debate. Rich, countering. One sec, Tatiana. Rich.
It's clear from all of our Russian friends that there is a great degree of mystery, even in the country still, about what was going on. Was some of it political theater? Undoubtedly, some of it was political theater. Was that helpful to Putin in some way? I really don't think so, because even if let's assume that some combination of what our Russian guests have said is true, and that Prigozhin's really a patriot, and that he's not really going to be punished that badly. Everybody wants the right things, and there's these visions that the Russians all have that are great for the world, and everybody in Russia loves them, and everybody in the world loves them. Of course, that sounds like a break with reality from the rest of the world. What I think, at a minimum, we can infer from what's gone on here is that there was a loss of control over military forces. That is never a good thing, not for national leadership. It's certainly not good for the Russian military. So this is a sign of weakness, and the fact that it only lasted 24 hours is a small consolation. But please, my Russian friends, don't try to put too smiley a face on this. This didn't turn out well for you. And as I pointed out, in the West, we have a saying, when your enemies are busy destroying themselves, don't interfere. We're going to let you work through this. Don't worry, we weren't behind it. And we do hope that it's an opportunity for you to pull back from an aggressive war to get your house in order.
I'm so sorry, so terribly sorry that even your analysts have, deducted that didn't help Ukraine even one bit. You can read the New York Times. They've said that Ukraine failed to use this to their advantage. So the aggressive war, as you call it, and and we've discussed this so many times. Jesus, I'm having flashbacks from a year ago when we were still discussing this in the very beginning, where I tried to
And you were very certain of victory at the time.
Sorry?
And you were very certain of victory at the time, as I recall.
Oh no, I was telling you that we'll wait and see, and then we'll see who's talking, the big talk in the end. And we're still seeing that the Russian army is advancing. However you want to spin it, and trust me, I can spin it myself in many ways. However you want to spin it, there are advances being made on a daily basis on the ground, and that's the only thing that matters. End of the day.
Yeah, really? Towards Moscow by Wagner, as far as Voronezh. That's what I was told.
Watch out the window if I see any tanks, but unfortunately the last tank I saw in the center of Moscow was in 1992. Sadly.
I am glad you're safe,
the statement came out while we were talking about all this, and Tatiana, this is going to be slightly embarrassing from your perspective also, because you've been saying that no, we are handling the situation ourselves. But Charles, we have a statement that came in from from the Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. I hope you don't disown him.
You mean the interview?
Well, Lavrov, Sergei
right?
Lavrov has given a statement where he has said, we are grateful to Alexander Lushenko, because Alexander Lushenko is the one person who has helped us to avoid bloodshed. It was Lushenko. Don't laugh. This is your foreign minister. It's your foreign minister. It's your foreign minister who's thanking Lushenko and admitted that Putin had to entirely depend on Lushenko to save the situation. No, I mean, this is, you can't be in denial completely about it. He has said that it was the Belarusian president. He actually on Saturday morning offered to help with the situation, and it is he who was able to resolve the situation, and we are grateful to him, etc., etc. Charles, I mean, this is a statement. No, Nikita, there's no point saying this is not true. This is your foreign minister.
Mr. Arnab, you're faking quote from Mr. Lavrov.
Well, I think that, you know, I think that if you are going to disown Lavrov, what can I do?
No, Mr. Arnab. Yesterday,
I'd like to respond to
1 minute. Everybody's getting too worked up with this. Charles, 1 minute, please. Charles is responding here. Nikita.
Mr. Arnab, I'm here to tell you how
I just want to. I'd like to push back against Tatiana's statement. Nikita, could you stay silent?
Nikita, Charles is responding, please. He's responding to Tatiana. Go on. Yes.
You asked me a question, Mr.
Yeah, but he's coming in. He's very exercised about something. He wants to comment back.
Nikita, enough.
Mr. Arnab, who are you asking a question?
The idea that somehow this is a
great.
1 sec, Nikita. Go on, Charles. Just wait a minute, Nikita. Charles is saying something to Tatiana. This debate is getting extremely hot, but it's a reality of the situation. Yeah.
That somehow this doesn't affect the situation in Ukraine, I think is incorrect. Yes, there were no troops pulled away from the front line. Russia continued to bomb Ukraine during this crisis. But I do think the situation has changed in several different respects. Number one, Prigozhin came right out and said what most of the world knows, which is this is a war without justification. He basically completely dismantled Putin's rationale for invading Ukraine. Number two, he broke into the open the dissent inside Russia and inside the Russian military over the issue of Ukraine. And number three, I think he's given cause to the United States and its allies to stand by Ukraine even further, even more for the long term, precisely because Russia is starting to crack. This is a war that is blowing back inside Russia and causing a threat to the regime of a sort that we haven't seen since Putin took power. That is a big deal.
The only question right now is whether Putin has given amnesty to Prigozhin, and if that is the case, if that is so, then why? Dr. Sergey, it would be a sign of weakness, I'm sure you'll agree, if Prigozhin is pardoned for whatever he's done, and if Lukashenko has been able to, after his capturing Russian commanders, bringing down Russian planes, if Lukashenko has sort of got a truce, and Tatiana may deny it, but this information is on the Sputnik Telegram channel, and I heard Tatiana was still employed with Sputnik, and Sputnik has reported this, where he has said that Alexander Lukashenko has helped us a lot to avoid bloodshed. It is only the Belarusian president who on Saturday morning offered to resolve the situation, and it is because of him that we were able to resolve the situation. Reported on Sputnik, ladies and gentlemen, with my compliments this evening. And, well, this is Sputnik. You don't believe Sputnik?
Thank you, Mr. Arnab, for your question. First of all, I want to tell...
You don't believe Sputnik now?
Mr. Arnab, you were caught faking the quotation of Mr. Lavrov. 5 minutes ago, you said...
Okay, so where is Prigozhin? Where, have you given him amnesty? Come on. No. Have you given him amnesty? 1 minute. Well, come to the point. Have you given him amnesty? Have you given him amnesty? Have you captured him?
Mr. Arnab, stop interrupting me.
No, I'm asking you, have you captured him? Have you given him amnesty?
5 minutes ago, you said that Lukashenko did everything and said that it was said by Mr. Lavrov.
Yes.
But now confessed that Lukashenko only helped to solve the problem. So, when you did lie, now...
Oh, God, you're embarrassing yourself. How can you say that? I mean, if your foreign minister is saying that it is because of his help that we were able to handle the situation, which means you were not able to handle the situation on your own. You were unable. Putin was not able to handle the situation on his own. He had to seek the help of Belarus to save the day.
We are speaking about your lie. You were correct.
No, I'm asking you. You're the one who's in absolute denial. If your foreign minister is thanking Lukashenko, what's there to be embarrassed about it? You must also thank him.
Mr. Arnab.
He thanked him for the help.
Sergey.
Different course of Mr. Lavrov.
Yes, Sergey.
First time or now?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity
Mr. Arnab.
at least to say few words. Just few, dear colleagues, dear friends. Just few words. First of all, Mr. Arnab, I'm so appreciate because your moderation of this TV show perfectly fine. I'm so appreciate. Yes, a lot of patience. I am absolutely agree with our Minister of External Affairs, Mr. Sergei Lavrov. Yes, thanks God, our two nations, Belarus and Russia, become more closer to each other because we have the same historical mission. We support tradition, we support moral value, we support humanity. And I think that all the world today should be so appreciate what our national leader did and what he will do to save the world and to his dedication to save the world. It's first point. Second point which I want to discuss, our topic today is Russia and American relationships. Because I'm a believer and famous American, not even Russian, American prophet Edgar Cayce predict that soon Russia and America will be close friends. And his prediction was confirmed destruction of USSR, Second War. All prediction of Edgar Cayce was confirmed by history. Only one prediction not confirmed yet is a friendship between America and Russia. I am completely believer it will be coming soon. We should found healthy politicians inside America. We should found some wisdom politicians who can see that conflict between Russia and Ukraine, it's actually not conflict between two our countries.
1 minute, Stephen.
Conflict of civilization.
Stephen Golub is responding to you from California.
Yes,
Stephen.
Thank you.
Stephen.
I actually think Sergey, if I may, there is one grain of truth in what Sergey said, along with these fantasies of Putin being chosen by God, my Lord. What kind of thing is that to say? But one grain of truth in what Sergey just said is that there is the possibility of America getting along much better with Russia. That is to put the cards on the table if Donald Trump is returned to office next year in our presidential election. And let's be clear, among the many other factors at work here, the geostrategic, the military, the diplomatic, the economic, one big factor here is the two sides are kind of in a waiting game against each other of who'll blink first. And by the two sides, I mean including the US and European support for Ukraine's struggle against Russia's invasion and atrocities. Putin is betting that Trump or someone like him will return to office next November in the US and will then cave to Russia and will abandon Ukraine. He's betting that at that time or even before then, Europe and the US will abandon Ukraine. With this whole series of events that have transpired over the last 48 hours, Putin's position is in turn looking much weaker. Will he actually emerge much weaker? We'll see. But he's looking much weaker.
You know, Stephen,
U.S. support and European support to Ukraine in ways that will counter the Russian efforts.
Okay, Tatiana is responding. Yes, Tatiana.
I think you're very mistaken. I think that the whole of Russia is very okay with you guys spending your money on something and killing your economy in the doing so. Also, you know, Joe Biden is just so amusing to look at. Please keep him in the office. Whenever he confuses
well, thank you
the
for that
names
great
of his
insight on how a president looks rather than the substance of his policies and what he's pursuing, again, in the context of atrocities being committed by Russia against Ukraine, against a completely unwarranted invasion of Ukraine by Russia. If you want to focus on Biden looking not that great, I'll agree, he doesn't look that great. But there's much, much more to this than that tiny, really irrelevant point you're trying to make here.
But you know, I just want to get in Greg for a moment. I think the fact what we are not looking at is, a leader like Putin will know the impact of all of this on his image. He has very, very strong narrative makers like Nikita, like Tatiana, who will argue for him in the best way possible, and I do appreciate that. But the fact of the matter is that this has affected his image, and he would not like it one bit. So Greg, he's going to try and do something to hit back. And he knows the longer he's out of the scene, not visible or not responding with an equal measure or strongly, then his hold on power will be questioned. It's a reality of power. Once people feel you're vulnerable, Greg, they exploit it. So Putin's got to do something very quickly. Do you agree with this, that he's got to do something to save his own image very soon?
Yes, but I think you showed Patrick Lancaster giving in Rostov, checking around. What you did not show is what he said, what he asked Prigozhin. And Prigozhin said everything worked out as expected. Everyone is satisfied. And this is present. Now, yes, I mean, one can understand why he's staying back, because there is potential blowback, political blowback. And when politicians face a situation like this, they step back and they put other people in their place, so that if there is a fatal part to this, then they will fall. But, I mean, if you look at this, this is not something which has been done the first time. I mean, Stalin remained silent after Barbarossa for a long period of time. And yet the Soviet Union bounced back from Barbarossa. It took 4 years and a lot of blood, but it was done. So I mean, the people are not for Prigozhin. They think he did a bad thing because he is on the surface of it, committed treason in the period of armed conflict, in the period of war. So people are not for him, they are against him. So this is going against your narrative.
Okay, so I suppose I accept all this, I accept all this, Greg, but now let me throw this to Rich with a simple question. You say he's a traitor, he's a terrorist, he's done something very bad in your own words, right? But there is no visible punishment. And if there is no visible punishment, then it affects Putin's image. There has to be visible punishment. I remind you, Greg, Putin has been known to act, right? In the even if it is with an individual, he's known to be. No. Allow me. He keeps his control on power like all strong leaders do by being unforgiving to people who affect his own interests. So he poisoned Alexander Litvinenko. Question here is this: that was an individual. This is a big group, a group funded by the Russians, a leader built up by Putin. Will he let him get away, Rich? I'm just trying to anticipate his next move, because there has to be a next move.
I think this is where a bit of theater comes in, frankly, because he did create Prigozhin, he did create Wagner. Putin has ultimate culpability for both his act of rebellion and then for the consequences of it. So if he goes too hard against them, he's really damning his own actions and the whole string going back to when Prigozhin was his caterer. So I think that probably there will be some effort to rehabilitate the image of Prigozhin while also ensuring he can't do this again. by, as we've already heard reports of, having all the Wagner guys sign new contracts with the MOD and with Russian services rather than with a private contractor.
If Putin buys peace of any kind, publicly or otherwise with Prigozhin, that will make him look weak. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah,
that will make him look very weak. He can't afford to do that, in my view. Okay, it's been an interesting conversation, ladies and gentlemen, on Putin versus Wagner. Remember, we've not heard the last of this. This is going to go through many episodes, many episodes. What I'm going to look out with interest is to see whether Putin responds. If he doesn't, that will be something which will hit his own image and profile. I will see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. Good night and goodbye.